Admiral Jessica Morrison's reflection stared back at her from Space Command's observation window, her steel-gray eyes fixed on the distant stars that held humanity's first extrasolar colony. 20 years of military service had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every fiber of her being screamed that something was terribly wrong. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere of the command center. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the final transmission from Proxima Centauri colony. Monthly status report for Earth Command. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's familiar face appeared, her expression professional as always. Colony population stable at 15,742. Agricultural section reports 115% of projected yields. We've successfully implemented the new quantum communication protocols and... The scientist's eyes suddenly widened, looking at something off-screen. The image shook. What in God's name is... Static consumed the transmission, punctuated by screams and the distinct sound of emergency sirens. Morrison leaned forward, focusing on the last few frames. There, in the background, something moved against the starlight. Something massive, something that shouldn't exist in controlled colony airspace. Analysis complete, Admiral. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across his console. No evidence of equipment malfunction. Quantum entanglement networks are stable. Whatever cut the transmission did it from their end. The Admiral's jaw tightened. She'd fought in the Mars rebellions, commanded Earth's first space-based military installation. But this was different. This was the nightmare scenario they'd prepared for, but hoped would never come. The quantum communicator chimed. Priority message from the Galactic Council. Admiral. The air shimmered as Counselor Zexiva materialized in holographic form, their crystalline body refracting light in complex patterns. Like all Lumini, they possessed an air of ancient wisdom that sometimes bordered on condescension. Admiral Morrison. The alien's harmonious voice filled the room. We've reviewed your emergency alert regarding Proxima Centauri. While we understand your species' tendency toward heightened concern, our analysis suggests simple equipment failure. Young spacefaring races often experience such difficulties. Morrison felt her blood pressure rise. Counselor, with respect, we've lost contact with nearly 16,000 colonists. Our systems detect no malfunction. We're launching an immediate investigation. That won't be necessary, the Zexiva interrupted. The Council is dispatching an investigative team. Your species' involvement would only complicate matters. Remember, Earth agreed to Council oversight when joining the galactic community. The transmission ended before Morrison could respond. For a moment, silence filled the command center. Then, she straightened her uniform and turned to her staff. Initialize Operation Prometheus, she commanded. Authorization Morrison, Alpha 709. The room erupted in controlled chaos. Hidden panels slid open in the walls, revealing secure quantum terminals. Lieutenant Chen's eyes widened. Admiral. The Council explicitly. The Council. Morrison cut him off. Doesn't know what we know. They haven't spent the last 15 years preparing for this moment. She strode to the central platform, where a new hologram sprouted to life. A massive vessel, unlike anything in Earth's public fleet. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, meet the ESS Nemesis. While we've played the role of the humble newcomers to galactic society, this ship has been under construction in the Jupiter shipyards. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity isn't just another young race. The ship's specifications scrolled past. Quantum-enhanced armor, reality warping drive systems, weapons that could crack moons. It was a reminder of humanity's darker wisdom, built by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war before reaching for the stars. Begin crew activation protocols, Morrison ordered, and get me a direct line to the Jupiter yards. If something's hunting in our space, it's about to learn what it means to become the prey. As her staff rushed to comply, Morrison looked again at the frozen image of the Proxima transmission. In the static-filled background, That shadow moved with terrifying purpose. Humanity had prepared for this moment, hidden behind their diplomatic smiles and peaceful overtures. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's children still checked under their beds for monsters. The Galactic Council's investigative fleet arrived at Proxima Centauri with all the pomp and ceremony typical of their kind. 3 crystalline ships, their hulls gleaming with bioluminescent patterns, emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. They lasted exactly 6 minutes. Admiral Morrison watched the sensor feeds from Earth's cloaked observation post as the ships disappeared, one by one, into the darkness between stars. No distress calls, no debris, just silence. "Play back the quantum wake analysis," she ordered. The holographic display transformed, showing energy patterns that rippled through space-time like waves on a dark ocean. Something massive had moved through that space, leaving traces that human scientists had learned to detect, signatures that the Council's systems ignored. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Chen's voice cracked slightly. "The Council's archives you requested. We found something." He transferred the data to the main screen, ancient text scrolling past in a dozen alien languages. They've seen this before. They just didn't want to believe it could happen again. The Vorkath. The name appeared in fragments of records thousands of years old, always accompanied by words like harvester and world ender. A species that emerged from dark space every few millennia to feed on developing civilizations, only to vanish again before the major powers could respond. Morrison's quantum communicator chimed. Counselor Zexiva's hologram appeared, their crystalline form vibrating with what passed for anxiety among the Lumini. Admiral Morrison. The alien's harmonious voice had lost its condescending edge. "We may have underestimated the situation. The Council is convening an emergency session to discuss appropriate responses." "With all due respect, Counselor," Morrison interrupted, "we're done discussing." She nodded to Chen, who initiated a secure transmission to the Jupiter shipyards. "While the Council debates, Earth will act." The hologram of the Nemesis appeared between them. Zexiva's crystal structure pulsed with shock. "Impossible. Your species doesn't possess this level of technology." "No," Morrison agreed. "We possess the imagination to combine your technologies in ways you never considered." Every spacefaring race gave up their weapons when they joined the Council. We smiled, nodded, and built something new. Screens lit up across the command center as the Nemesis powered up for the first time. Its quantum core, inspired by Council technology, but refined through human ingenuity, pulsed with enough energy to tear a hole in reality. The ship's AI, ZUS, came online, processing combat scenarios faster than any organic mind could comprehend. "The Vorkath are targeting developing worlds because they're easy prey," Morrison explained, watching the ship's systems synchronize. "They don't expect resistance. They certainly don't expect anything like this." A junior officer rushed in, face pale. "Admiral, we've decoded more of the Vorkath's quantum wake patterns. They're not random. They're systematic. He swallowed hard. They're heading for Earth." Morrison smiled grimly. "Good. Good?" Zexiva's hologram flickered with confusion. "Your species faces extinction, Admiral." "No, Counselor. The Vorkath face extinction. They've spent millennia hunting species that gave up their weapons. Now they're about to meet one that simply hid them better." She turned to her crew. "Begin Operation Prometheus Phase 2. I want the Nemesis ready for launch in 6 hours." As her staff scrambled to comply, Morrison accessed the ship's specifications one last time. The Nemesis wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's answer to a galaxy that thought peace meant weakness. Its hull could adapt like organic armor, its weapons drew power from quantum fluctuations, and its AI carried the accumulated military knowledge of every human conflict ever fought. "Tell me, Counselor," Morrison asked the still stunned hologram, "in all your species' history, did you ever wonder why humans check dark spaces before entering a room? Why our children fear what lurks in shadows. She gestured to the tactical display showing the Vorkath's approach vector. We evolved from prey animals that became apex predators. We remember what it means to be hunted, and we promised ourselves, never again. The Nemesis's engines flared to life, a new star born in Jupiter's orbit. The hunt was about to begin, and humanity was done being prey. The Vorkath warships hung in Epsilon Eridani's orbit like ancient sea predators, their obsidian hulls drinking in starlight. They'd already dispatched the system's meager defenses, standard council peacekeeping vessels that never stood a chance. Now they waited, sensors sweeping the debris field for survivors to harvest. They never saw the Nemesis coming. The human warship materialized from what appeared to be empty space, its metamorphic hull shifting from void black to burning chrome in seconds. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge, watching targeting solutions cascade across ZUS's tactical displays. Multiple Vorkath signatures detected, the AI reported, its voice a calm baritone modeled after ancient warrior poets. Their hull composition is interesting. Organic technology, but twisted. Corrupted. Morrison nodded. Show me their blind spots. The tactical display shifted, highlighting weak points in the Vorkath formation. Their ships were arranged in a hunting circle, a formation that had probably worked for millennia against lesser prey. The Nemesis quantum sensors picked up their communication signals, clicks and subsonic rumbles that spoke of ancient hunger. Let's introduce ourselves, Morrison commanded. Activate the void wake drives. The Nemesis's engines pulsed, manipulating quantum fields in ways that made reality shiver. They'd reversed engineered the technology from studying the Vorkath's own wake patterns, but improved it, refined it, weaponized it. The first Vorkath ship died before it could react. The Nemesis phase shifted through its shields, adaptive hull morphing to produce monomolecular blades that carved through ancient armor like tissue paper. As the vessel split apart, Morrison allowed herself a grim smile. Send the signal. On all Vorkath frequencies, human battle hymns began to play. Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries, mixed with the war drums of a dozen Earth cultures. Psychological warfare, tailored to a species that hunted through sound. The remaining Vorkath ships scattered, their formation breaking. For the first time in their history, they faced an enemy that didn't simply fight, it hunted. The Nemesis's hull rippled, quantum camouflage bending light, until it seemed to split into multiple vessels, each one broadcasting different human war cries. They're adapting, ZUS reported as energy beams lanced through space where the Nemesis had been seconds before. Recalculating attack vectors, Morrison watched the Vorkath attempts to counter their tactics. Show me what they're afraid of. The AI analyzed the enemy's erratic movements, their desperate communication bursts. They fear what they don't understand. We're not behaving like prey, but we're not behaving like any predator they've encountered either. Good. Morrison keyed the ship-wide comm. Execute Thunder Run protocol. The Nemesis's hull transformed again, this time becoming almost translucent. Quantum energy coursed through specialized channels, turning the entire ship into what ancient humans would have called a ghost. It passed through two Vorkath vessels simultaneously, its energy wake disrupting their core systems. The alien ships died silently, their crews experiencing their own weapon turned against them, a horrible sensation of being harvested, pulled apart at the quantum level. Morrison had insisted on this capability. Let them know how it felt. The last Vorkath vessel tried to flee, its dark matter drives spooling up for a jump. The Nemesis caught it in a quantum tether, a technology that didn't exist in any council database because humanity had invented it specifically for this moment. Signal from the Vorkath ship, ZUS reported. They're begging. Morrison straightened her uniform. Put it on screen. The alien that appeared was Nightmare given form. Chitinous armor, sensory organs that evolved in darkness, mandibles designed for feeding on terror as much as flesh. But its posture spoke a language every human predator understood. Submission. Remember this moment, Morrison addressed the alien in its own language, translated by ZUS. Remember that humans don't just kill. We hunt. We track. We learn. Spread the word to your harvesters. Earth is not prey. She cut the transmission and released the quantum tether, allowing the damaged ship to limp away. It would carry tales of humanity's weapon, of the ghost ship that hunted hunters. As the Nemesis secured the system, Morrison accessed his quantum core. The ship had performed beyond expectations, but this was just the beginning. The real war was about to begin, and humanity had just announced their presence in the most dramatic way possible. The galaxy's apex predators were about to learn what it meant to fear the dark. The holographic display aboard the Nemesis showed a Vorkath supply fleet scattered across 3 star systems. On each disabled ship's hull, carved with precision particle beams, was a different symbol. Ancient runes of war, death masks from a dozen human cultures, and geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed too long. Primitive psychological warfare, sneered High Commander Vextra of the Vorkath Defense Fleet, their mandibles clicking in assumed superiority. We are beyond such simple fears. 20 minutes later, their flagship ceased to exist. Admiral Morrison watched the quantum wake signatures fade from her tactical display. Status of Operation Nightmare. Phase 1 complete, ZUS reported. The Vorkath communication networks are saturated with our transmissions. Their attempts to block us are inadequate. Across Vorkath space, their ship's communication systems betrayed them. Instead of tactical data, they broadcast human laughter, children's laughter, specifically chosen because the Vorkath had no concept of young that played instead of hunted. Between bursts of laughter came whispered nursery rhymes, translated into their language. Ring around the rosy, pockets full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Their flagship cluster is responding, Lieutenant Chen reported, suppressing a smile. They're deploying in sphere formation. They still think we can only attack from one direction at a time. Morrison nodded to her weapons officer. Show them their mistake. Execute quantum ghosting. The Nemesis' quantum core pulsed and reality fractured. Using technology that the Council had deemed theoretically impossible, the ship existed in multiple phases simultaneously. To the Vorkath sensors, it appeared as if a dozen Nemesis vessels had surrounded them, each one broadcasting a different human battle cry. Target their lead ships, Morrison ordered. Let's add to their mythology. The Nemesis' weapons weren't just designed to destroy. They were crafted to terrify. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through shields, materializing inside engine cores. Particle beams carve human cave paintings onto hull plates, stick figures hunting larger predators, a message even the Vorkath's primitive minds could understand. Enemy commanders are breaking formation, ZUS announced. Detecting increased neural activity in their command interfaces, they're experiencing what humans would call panic. Morrison allowed herself a cold smile. Implement the Banshee protocol. The AI complied, and the Nemesis' hull began to vibrate at specific frequencies. The vibrations traveled through space using quantum fields, resonating with the organic components of Vorkath ships. Their crews heard what seemed to be human voices whispering in their neural networks. We see you in the dark. Your children will speak our names. Even monsters fear something. The effect was devastating. Vorkath vessels began firing at shadows, at their own ships, at empty space where quantum ghosts of the Nemesis flickered in and out of existence. Message from their new flagship, Chen reported. Audio only. Play it. The bridge filled with sounds of chittering panic. What are you? A Vorkath commander demanded. No prey species fights like this. No predator hunts like this. Morrison keyed the response herself. We are what evolves when prey learns to hunt its hunters, when victims study their tormentors, when the monsters under the bed learn to fight back. She switched off the communication and turned to her tactical display. Target their quantum cores. Leave one ship functional enough to broadcast. The Nemesis struck like lightning, its weapons transforming Vorkath ships into expanding clouds of debris. The surviving vessel, crippled but alive, broadcast everything to their command network. As they prepared to jump to their next target, Morrison reviewed the battle footage. The Vorkath had ruled space through terror for millennia. Now they learned what real fear felt like, not the simple fear of death, but the complex terror that only humans had mastered. The fear of the unknown, the unseen, the thing that hunted the hunters. Plot a course for their next supply depot, she ordered. It's time to teach them why humanity's children still fear the dark. ZUS compiled the battle data, noting how the Vorkath tactics had already begun to change. They were learning, adapting, but so was the Nemesis. The game of predator and prey had entered a new phase, and humanity was rewriting the rules. The galaxy was learning that Earth's greatest weapon wasn't its technology. It was its intimacy with fear itself. The star at the heart of HD 40,307 pulsed with unusual activity. Massive solar flares twisted through space like serpents of plasma, far too regular to be natural. At the edge of the system, 3 civilian transport ships limped toward safety, their engines strained to breaking point. Behind them, a Vorkath dreadnought closed in for the kill. "They're targeting the civilian ships," Lieutenant Chen reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. Medical transport from Centauri Prime, refugee carrier from Proxima, and a Lumini educational vessel. 5,000 souls, Admiral. Morrison stood on the Nemesis's bridge, watching the solar flares with predatory focus. ZUS, status of the Thunder Child Protocol. Solar manipulation fields at maximum capacity, the AI responded. Warning: attempting to ride a solar flare exceeds all known safety parameters. Survival probability 37%. Morrison's lips curved into a sharp smile. When has that ever stopped humanity? The Nemesis hung in space, its quantum core pulsing as it manipulated the star's magnetic fields. The ship's hull began to transform, specialized alloys preparing for temperatures that could vaporize conventional materials. "Message from the Vorkath dreadnought," Chen announced. "They're laughing at us. Put it through." The bridge speakers filled with the chittering sound of Vorkath amusement. "Clever prey," their commander's translated voice dripped with contempt. "You hide behind a star while we feast. Your reputation appears exaggerated." Morrison nodded to her weapons officer. "Show them why Earth named this ship Nemesis." The star erupted. A massive solar flare, guided by quantum fields, twisted through space like a highway to hell. The Nemesis's engines flared, and the impossible happened. The ship dove into the plasma stream. "Hull temperature critical," ZUS reported calmly. "Quantum shields holding. Adaptive armor reconfiguring to solar patterns." The Nemesis rode the solar flare like ancient surfers rode waves, its hull glowing white-hot. To the Vorkath sensors, it must have looked like a demon emerging from a star's heart. They broke formation, their confidence shattered by the sight of a ship doing what their species had deemed impossible. "Target locked," Chen called out, his voice tight with concentration. "They're trying to jump to hyperspace. Not today." Morrison's voice was steel. "Execute primary attack plan." The Nemesis burst from the solar flare like a bullet from a gun. Its quantum wake carved through space, the excess solar energy creating a cascade of radiation that overwhelmed Vorkath shields. Before they could recover, the human warship was among them. "Multiple targets acquired," ZUS announced. "Implementing lessons from the Battle of Midway, adapted for 3-dimensional space warfare." The Nemesis struck from angles that shouldn't have existed, its weapons enhanced by the solar energy it had absorbed. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through armor, detonating inside vital systems. Particle beams, supercharged by stellar fire, carved Vorkath ships into dying fragments. "Enemy vessel attempting to target civilian ships," Chen reported urgently. Morrison's response was immediate. "Activate the Charid disarray." The Nemesis's quantum core pulsed, creating a localized gravity well that caught the Vorkath's weapons fire and curved it back upon them. Their own energy beams carved through their hull, a lesson in poetic justice that ZUS noted for future psychological warfare. The dreadnought, its arrogance broken along with its weapons, tried to flee. The Nemesis caught it in a quantum tether, holding it in place as another solar flare, smaller but precisely targeted, swept past. When the plasma cleared, the massive ship hung dead in space, its organic components cooked by stellar fire. "Civilian ships are clear," Chen reported, relief evident in his voice. Quantum wake analysis shows no other Vorkath vessels in range. Morrison watched the burning wreckage of the dreadnought, already calculating their next move. The Nemesis had just proven that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology. It was its willingness to attempt the impossible. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. Thunderchild protocol exceeded expectations. The Vorkath are about to learn why humans named their most powerful warships after vengeance itself. As they prepared to jump to their next target, the star behind them continued to pulse with artificial precision, a warning beacon to any who would threaten humanity's protected worlds. Here there be dragons, and they've learned to breathe stellar fire. Admiral Morrison stood in the Nemesis's medical bay, watching the stasis pods that contained 3 surviving Vorkath from their last battle. Their chitinous armor was cracked, revealing surprisingly vulnerable flesh beneath. The ship's chief medical officer, Dr. Sarah Hayes, monitored their life signs with professional detachment. "Their biology is fascinating," Hayes noted, studying neural readings. "Highly developed predatory instincts, but there's something else, something artificial." "Elaborate," Morrison ordered, her eyes fixed on the largest specimen, a sub-commander they'd pulled from a burning command deck. "Their aggression centers have been modified. Not evolved. Engineered. Someone rewrote their species' neural architecture, probably millennia ago." Hayes brought up a holographic brain scan. "They're not just hunters. They were made into weapons." The revelation hung heavy in the air, interrupted by Lieutenant Chen's voice over the comm. "Admiral, to the bridge. Priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Morrison found the council members' holograms waiting, their usual aristocratic postures strained with confusion. Councilor Zexiva spoke first. "Admiral, we've been monitoring your encounters with the Vorkath. Your tactics are disturbing." "Disturbing." Morrison's voice was arctic. "You mean effective. You rescued their survivors," another counselor noted. "After destroying their ships with unprecedented brutality, you expended resources to save their wounded. This contradicts all logical combat doctrine." Morrison smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You still don't understand humans, do you? We can be your worst nightmare or your greatest allies, sometimes both in the same moment." She brought up tactical displays showing their recent battles. The Nemesis's hull still bore scars from riding solar flares, its armor permanently altered by stellar fire. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics," Morrison explained. "It's our capacity to be both warrior and healer, destroyer and protector. We save our enemies because we remember being prey, but we fight like demons because we remember becoming predators." The medical bay alert flashed on her screen. The Vorkath sub-commander was awake. "If you'll excuse me, counselors, I have a patient to interview." In the medical bay, the alien commander thrashed against quantum restraints, mandibles clicking in threat displays. Morrison approached calmly, ZUS translating its chittering speech. "Kill me, demon ship. Complete your hunt." "No," Morrison replied simply. "You're going to live. You're going to learn. Then you're going to teach." She activated a neural interface, showing the Vorkath their own biological scans. "Your species wasn't born to be this way. You were engineered, transformed into living weapons by something ancient and cruel. We found the markers in your DNA, the artificial modifications to your neural architecture." The alien went still, its compound eyes reflecting the damning data. Lies. We are apex. We are. You are victims, Morrison cut in. Like we were, eons ago when larger predators hunted our ancestors. But humans didn't just evolve to survive. We evolved to understand, to learn, to choose when to fight and when to heal. The Nemesis shuddered slightly as its quantum drive engaged, preparing for another jump. Through the medical bay's viewport, stars stretched into lines of light. Your ship. The Vorkath's translator struggled with its tone of wonder. It hunts like no predator should. It protects like no prey would dare. Because we're neither, Morrison explained. We're what happens when a species learns from both roles. We built the Nemesis not just to fight, but to understand. Every battle teaches us more about you. Every survivor helps us understand what your species could be without its artificial chains. The alien's next words surprised her. The others will not listen. They will, Morrison assured it, because we'll give them something they've never had. A choice. The Nemesis isn't just a weapon, it's a message. Humanity stands ready to be either your worst nightmare or your path to freedom. As if to emphasize her point, the ship's quantum sensors detected another Vorkath fleet. The hunt would continue, but now with a deeper purpose. They weren't just fighting to protect, they were fighting to liberate a species from its own engineered nature. The galaxy was about to learn humanity's most profound truth. True strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when to heal instead. Red alert klaxons wailed throughout the Nemesis as 57 Vorkath warships emerged from hyperspace around Neptune. Their massive forms blotted out the stars, organic hulls pulsing with harvested energy. This was no hunting pack. This was an extinction fleet. They've committed everything, Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice steady despite the odds. Every remaining Vorkath vessel in known space. Admiral Morrison stood at the tactical display, watching the enemy formation. Behind her, the holographic forms of Earth's military command and a galactic council bore witness to humanity's last stand. You cannot win this, Admiral. The Vorkath High Command's transmission crackled through the bridge. Your ship has hurt us, haunted us, but we are Legion, and you are one. Morrison's response was to activate the quantum core, ZUS, initiate protocol Prometheus Unchained. Warning, the AI's voice carried an unusual note of concern. This protocol exceeds safe operational parameters for all systems. Probability of ship survival, 23%. Sometimes the best hunter must risk everything for the kill. Morrison's words carried the weight of ancient wisdom. Execute. The Nemesis's hull began to transform, not into its usual adaptive patterns, but into something new. Quantum fields warped reality around the ship as it tapped into the fundamental forces of spacetime itself. Broadcasting decoded genetic data to all Vorkath ships, Chen announced. Neural modification evidence transmitting on all frequencies. The enemy fleet's formation wavered as their crews received the truth about their species' enslavement. But their programming ran too deep for mere facts to overcome. Die knowing you failed, pray. The High Command spat. Your understanding means nothing. Morrison's smile was terrible to behold. Understanding means everything. ZUS, show them what we learned from their neural architecture. The Nemesis pulsed with energy as it transmitted a signal specifically designed to interact with the Vorkath's engineered neural patterns. Across the enemy fleet, crew members began to experience something their species had been programmed to forget. Their own history. Memory suppression blocks failing in 37% of enemy vessels, ZUS reported. Genetic locks beginning to degrade. Morrison opened a channel to all ships. You were not born to be hunters. You were transformed, enslaved by an ancient race that turned you into living weapons. Look into your genetic memory. Remember who you were. The Vorkath fleet's response was chaos. Some ships opened fire, their weapons blazing with desperate fury. Others hung motionless as their crews fought internal battles with resurfacing memories. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Chen called out. They're trying to coordinate a mass attack. Perfect. Morrison's voice was iron. Spring the trap. The space around Neptune rippled as dozens of quantum mines, secretly planted during previous battles, activated simultaneously. The Nemesis had been herding the Vorkath here, to this killing ground, for weeks. But these weren't ordinary weapons. Each mine contained data, memories, genetic keys designed to unlock the artificial bonds in Vorkath mines. The explosions were both physical and metaphysical, ripping through hulls while shattering mental chains. Enemy fleet fragmenting, ZUS reported, detecting widespread neural pattern changes. They're remembering. Through the chaos, the Nemesis struck like lightning. Each shot was precisely calculated, disabling rather than destroying, surgical strikes that induced quantum field disruptions in the Vorkath's organic technology. Your people were poets once, Morrison broadcast to the failing fleet, philosophers who reached for the stars. Your cities weren't hunting grounds. They were centers of learning. You can be that again. The battle became something unprecedented, a war fought not just in space, but in the consciousness of an entire species. The Nemesis weapons struck bodies while its transmissions freed minds, each victory creating new allies among the confused enemy ranks. Admiral, ZUS interrupted, quantum core reaching critical levels. We cannot maintain this output. Morrison watched as ship after ship went dark, their crews either liberated from ancient programming or disabled by the Nemesis's strikes. We don't need to maintain it. We just needed to show them the truth. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's helping them destroy what enslaves them. Chen finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. The space around Neptune blazed with the light of freedom being reborn, and humanity's greatest weapon proved to be not its capacity for violence, but its ability to understand, adapt, and liberate. The Nemesis hung in Neptune's orbit, its hull scarred by battles that would become legend. Around it floated the silent forms of the Vorkath fleet, not destroyed, but transformed. Quantum field readings showed changes rippling through their organic technology as centuries of artificial neural programming unraveled. Admiral Morrison stood before the combined holograms of Earth Command and the Galactic Council, her uniform bearing the marks of the final battle. Behind her, the first of the transformed Vorkath ships was beginning to power up under its newly awakened crew. Impossible. Counselor Zexiva whispered, their crystalline form flickering with emotion. You didn't just defeat them. You freed them. Because we understood something you forgot. Morrison replied, bringing up the Nemesis's battle recordings. True strength isn't in having the biggest weapons or the most ships. It's in remembering both sides of evolution, the prey we were and the guardians we chose to become. The ship's quantum core hummed as ZUS compiled the battle data. On dozens of Vorkath vessels, crews were awakening to their true nature, ancient memories flooding back through generations of engineered barriers. The first transformed Vorkath commander, their chitinous armor now bearing marks of blue and gold rather than midnight black, appeared in hologram beside Morrison. We remember now, they said, their translator struggling with emotions their species hadn't expressed in millennia. We were scholars once, explorers, before the Dark Ones remade us into their weapons. Morrison nodded to Lieutenant Chen, who activated the ship's primary display. It showed the Vorkath homeworld as it had been, reconstructed from their recovered genetic memory. Not a warren of hunting grounds, but a civilization of crystal spires and quantum observatories. Humanity stands ready to help you rebuild, Morrison declared, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as equals who understand the price of evolution. The Galactic Council stirred, their ancient protocols challenged by this unprecedented situation. A new member spoke, one who had been silent until now. This changes the balance of power. The Vorkath were our great threat, and humanity our young charge. Now you understand what we've always been, Morrison interrupted. We're not your children playing with borrowed toys. We're the species that looked into the dark, saw what lived there, and decided to become something new. Protectors who remember being prey, warriors who choose to heal. ZUS's displays showed the Nemesis's transformation during battle, not just its physical adaptations, but the way it had evolved its tactics, learning and growing with each engagement. The ship hadn't just been fighting. It had been teaching, each battle a lesson in what humanity had learned through its own evolution. The Council recognizes, HFY announced formally, that a new classification is required. Humanity has demonstrated capabilities and wisdom beyond our existing frameworks. We propose the creation of a new category, Guardian Species. Morrison's response was interrupted by alerts from the quantum sensors. The transformed Vorkath ships were moving, but not to attack. They were forming an honor guard around the Nemesis, their organic technology resonating in harmony rather than hunger. We accept this role, Morrison declared, not as rulers or controllers, but as guides. Earth remembers its history, every war, every struggle, every step from prey to predator to protector. We'll help the Vorkath remember their own path and stand ready to assist any species facing similar challenges. The Nemesis' quantum core pulsed one final time. Its energy patterns adapted to heal rather than harm. Across the Vorkath fleet, ships began to transform, their midnight hulls blooming with colors unseen for millennia. Let the galaxy remember this, Morrison addressed all listening channels. Humanity's greatest weapon was never the Nemesis itself. It was our understanding that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when to protect, when to fight, and when to heal. As the combined fleet prepared to jump to Earth for the formal establishment of the Guardian Protocols, Morrison looked out at the transformed Vorkath ships. They were no longer the galaxy's nightmare, but its newest scholars, guided back to their true nature by a species that remembered what it meant to change. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if acknowledging that the galaxy's children had finally learned to master their fears rather than be mastered by them.